I'm a full-time software developer who landed his dream job where I can work from anywhere and get paid to do what I love. But it took a lot of work to get here. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving you my take on a few pitfalls that you'll hit while learning how to code. These tips should not only help you get started, but carry you through most of your learning process as you try to land the legendary six-figure remote job. 8 years ago, I didn't know how to code. In fact, I barely knew how to use a computer. But after my brother showed me how to install a Minecraft mod, I thought, how hard can a computer science degree be? And I enrolled at college for something I had no natural talent for and no knowledge of. This is where I learned my first important lesson. Coding is really hard, but it's always doable. In fact, I believe that trusting the process and being willing to grind is one of the best ways to learn. It's like power scaling in anime. The villain is always just strong enough to almost kill the character. But with a little bit training, they always get defeated. It's the same thing with programming. When I first started, I couldn't understand variables. I mastered that, but then loops gave me problems. There's always something else for you to learn, and that's how you become better. It's just like a video game. When you die, you don't just give up and say, well, I'm not naturally gifted at this game. Death is just how you know what not to do for the next time. You have to look forward to beating the next boss. When you get an error, you've unlocked a new lesson on how not to code. I can't tell you how many gifted programmers would come into class bragging about some project that they created, only to fail out of the class 3 weeks later because they were unwilling to learn. Embrace the suck. It's how you learn. Speaking of learning, you probably start out wanting to find out the best of everything. What's the best language, the best framework, the best compiler? The truth is that it doesn't matter what language you start with. It matters how good you are with that language. There was one time where a classmate of mine asked me for my help on an assignment, only to make fun of me for the text editor I was using. And to be fair, Notepad probably isn't the most beginner-friendly text editor, but at the end of the day, I had bad tools and working code, while he had great tools and nothing to show for it. The goal isn't to find the right tool, the goal is to become the right tool. The first language I learned was C, and at this point, I can't remember anything about it except for the pain that it caused me. But your first language will help you become somebody that understands variables and memory allocation, and all these important concepts that you can apply to no matter what language you use. That being said, I have heard that Python is a great place to start. And if you want to make things easy, just download VS Code. Like every crusty developer, you'll build your own crazy preferences over time, but this is a nice place to start. And speaking of getting started, even with all the right tools, most programmers never actually do. They find a good tutorial, watch it, maybe do part of the challenge, and then move on to the next tutorial. The problem is that they don't get any practice solving problems this way. The way to become strong is by working out, not by watching Pumping Iron on repeat. You need to practice moving the weight yourself. With coding, the heavy lifting comes from solving problems. It's easy to follow a tutorial sometimes, but you miss out on the most important part, solving the problems. So try and find some ways to challenge yourself. There are daily programming challenges all over the internet. Look for projects you can be a part of. Or if you can't find one you like, just make your own. And just like working out, you need to be disciplined. Lots of people join gyms on New Year's, but they quit and they lose any progress they make. If you want to become a better developer, you need to be spending a few hours every day to see those sweet programming gains. And on the topic of gains, make sure you're caring for your mind and body, since your new hobby consists of hunching over in a chair, absorbing blue light, and not moving. The goal is to make coding addicting, but that means you'll be spending most of the day feeling great without ever having to leave the house. Exercise is great because it reduces stress, which is vital for when the computer keeps taunting you with errors. Your diet has just as much an impact on your life. Eating the right food can help improve your focus, but more importantly, your mood. So for the safety of you, your computer, and all of humanity, don't forget to have a snack. Once you start coding for a bit, you'll probably hit an issue and ask for help. That's when you'll realize that programmers are horribly toxic and unhelpful. And you don't want to be like that because by doing it, you miss out on one of the most powerful learning hacks out there that was popularized in this Nobel Prize winner's famous learning technique. Here's the whole thing. Choose a concept that you want to learn. Explain the topic to someone like they're a child. Identify any gaps in your own understanding. And finally, review for a better understanding. Most programmers think that once they learn something, they'll be able to teach it. But it's actually the opposite. You learn something better and faster by teaching it. This is actually my motivation for this channel. I want to share what I'm learning so that we can all learn from it together. So this is how you might be able to use it for programming. Let's say you're struggling with functions and you want to get better. Grab a roommate, sibling, or non-techie person and try to explain it to them. If they ask a question that you don't have the answer to, write it down, and that's what you study next. If they feel like they understand it, make fun of them and tell them that you were explaining it like they were only 12 years old. Just joking, but this will quickly show you how well you know a concept, because you're giving yourself an easy way to test it. If you're like me and nobody wants to talk to you, you can always find an online community on Discord or Slack. If even that doesn't work, use one of those questionable AI therapy bots to talk about your problems. You don't have to know everything about what you're teaching. In fact, you don't really have to know anything about what you're teaching. You just have to have the mindset that you're not going to let anything get in the way of you coding and learning. Don't fall into the trap of just consuming content and never creating anything useful from it. You're going to learn by doing. Everything seems overwhelming when you haven't started, so the goal should be to get through the project as fast as possible. I mean, speed run that thing. And when you hit something you can't figure out, celebrate. Now you know what you need to optimize. This is why writers have rough drafts, because it's easier to improve vocabulary or grammar once there's already something to look at. And the problems seem much smaller. Instead of worrying about how am I going to write this 12-page paper, you only have to solve the problem of how can I make this paragraph stronger, or how can I elaborate on this point. Coding is the same way. It's impossible to optimize a thought. Once you get code on a screen, you can see where your logic is broken. The final benefit is that others can see where your logic is broken, so you can get feedback. The goal is to make it fun. If you've always got something new to share, it becomes a thrilling experience. But if you're always worried about how to get started, I guarantee you will give up before you even start. And speaking of giving up, don't think that a 12-hour caffeinated coding marathon will replace disciplined practice every day. That's a perfect recipe to get burnt out. The best advice I have is to learn to set timers. This does two things. It's a lot easier to get started when you have a short goal. Don't want to start coding? Just set a timer for 10 minutes. This gives you an easy target, which kicks our monkey minds into overdrive. The other reason is that it gives you a chance to take a little break. Little breaks throughout studying sessions are proven to make you better at learning. They also give your head a little time to recover from all the programming that you've been doing. In my college years, I would procrastinate until the night an assignment was due. By midnight, maybe I had the assignment done and maybe I didn't. But either way, I would miss out on a lot of the learning that I could have gotten from taking my time on the assignment. Also, caffeine, sleep deprivation, and stress are the perfect recipe for a not fun time coding. Learn to take breaks and give your mind time to understand what you're doing. If you've got a big problem, learn to sleep on it, and you'll probably wake up with the answer. Now that you've got a healthy setup, the final step is to pick a project and start coding. Look forward to the pain of learning and share it with others. That'll get you farther than 99% of developers out there. And if you're really serious about learning how to code, check out this next video.